The exam room smelled like antiseptic and broken dreams. I stood there, white coat perfectly pressed, stethoscope around my neck, and stared at my father across his mahogany desk. The same desk where he had taught me to read medical journals when I was 8 years old. "You're joking, Dad," I said, my voice barely steady. "This is some kind of test, right?" He did not look up from the papers he was signing. His silver hair caught the afternoon light streaming through the window of his office at the back of our family practice. "This is final, Vivian. The practice goes to your brother." My hands trembled. 27 years of my life had been building toward this moment. Every late night studying anatomy, every rotation during medical school, every patient I had comforted during my residency in internal medicine. All of it had been preparation to join the practice my grandfather had started in 1962, the one my father had expanded into 3 locations across Denver. "I graduated top of my class," I said, hating how my voice cracked. "I have better recommendations than Trevor ever did. My residency evaluations were exceptional." Finally, he looked at me. His expression was not cruel, which somehow made it worse. It was matter of fact, as if he were explaining why the sky was blue. "Medicine isn't for women, not at this level. You're 33 years old. You'll want a family soon. Patients need consistency." "Trevor is engaged to someone who wants 4 children immediately," I said. "He told us that at Sunday dinner last month." "That's different." "How?" "Men can balance both. You know this, Vivian. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm being practical." He stood up and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "Your brother needs this." He struggled to find his footing. The practice will give him purpose, stability. The injustice of it pressed against my chest like a physical weight. Trevor had barely passed his boards. He had changed specialties twice during residency, finally settling on internal medicine only because it was what our father wanted. He had no passion for patient care, no dedication to the continuous learning that medicine demanded. But he had something I did not. He was a man. "I've prepared for this my entire life," I whispered. "Then you'll understand that sometimes we don't get what we want." My father turned back to me. "I've arranged a position for you at Denver Community Hospital. It's a good opportunity. You'll have your own career, your own path. I don't want my own path. I want our family's path. The one you promised me since I was 7 years old, and you let me shadow you during Saturday appointments. Things change. Expectations change." He walked back to his desk and sat down, picking up his pen again. The conversation was over in his mind. "Trevor starts next Monday. I'm announcing it to the staff tomorrow afternoon." I stood there for another moment, waiting for him to look up again, to see me, to remember all the promises he had made. But he just kept signing papers, and I realized that to him, I had already left the room. I walked out of his office, through the hallway lined with photos of 3 generations of doctors in our family. All men. My grandmother had been a nurse. My aunt had managed the billing department. The women in our family supported the practice. They did not lead it. The other physicians were seeing patients. I could hear Dr. Harrison's gentle voice in room 3, explaining blood pressure medication to an elderly patient. In room 5, Dr. Webb was laughing at something. The sounds of the practice I had dreamed of joining since childhood. I drove home in a daze. My apartment felt too quiet. I sat on my couch and stared at my medical degree on the wall. Dr. Vivian Walsh, it said in elegant script. 4 years of undergraduate work. 4 years of medical school. 3 years of residency. All of it meaningless because of an accident of biology. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Your father told me about his decision. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Maybe it's for the best. You could find a nice husband, start a family. Being a doctor is so demanding." I threw my phone across the room. The next morning I woke up with clarity I had not felt in years. Anger had burned away during the night, leaving something harder and brighter in its place. Determination. I called Dr. Patricia Owens, a mentor from my residency who now ran her own practice in Seattle. When I explained what had happened, she was silent for a long moment. "I'm not surprised," she finally said. "I'm disappointed, but not surprised. Your father is old school in the worst way. I need advice. You need a battle plan." I could hear the smile in her voice. "Come visit me this weekend. We'll talk strategy." I flew to Seattle that Saturday. Patricia met me at a coffee shop near her practice, a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a waiting room that looked nothing like my father's traditional setup. "You have two choices," she said, sliding a cappuccino across the table to me. "Accept a position somewhere else and spend your career wondering what if. Or you compete." "Compete?" "Open your own practice, in Denver. Show your father exactly what he passed over." She leaned back in her chair. "I won't lie to you, Vivian. It will be brutal. Starting a practice from scratch takes capital, connections, and patience. You'll work 18-hour days. You'll question everything. But if you succeed, you'll have something that's entirely yours. He'll see it as betrayal. He already betrayed you. He broke every promise he ever made about your future." Patricia's expression was fierce. "You don't owe him protection from the consequences of his own sexism." The idea terrified me. It also thrilled me in a way I had not expected. "I have some savings," I said slowly. "About 80,000 from my residency and some investments my grandmother left me." "That's a start. You'll need more. Business loans, probably investors." She pulled out her phone and started typing. "I know people. Let me make some calls." Over the next 3 months, I worked my position at Denver Community Hospital during the day and built my business plan at night. Patricia connected me with a healthcare consultant who had helped dozens of physicians start their own practices. I met with bankers, lawyers, and real estate agents. The more I learned, the more I realized how unprepared Trevor was for what he was inheriting. My father was handing him a turnkey operation, but my brother had no idea how to manage staff, negotiate with insurance companies, or handle the 1,000 small crises that arose in a medical practice every week. I found the perfect location in April. A recently renovated building in a growing neighborhood in Denver, close enough to my father's main office to draw from the same patient population, but far enough away to feel independent. The rent was steep, but the space was beautiful, bright, modern, with enough room for 4 exam rooms, a small lab, and a comfortable waiting area. My loan officer initially laughed at my proposal. "You want to compete with an established practice that's been in the community for 60 years? "I want to offer better care," I corrected. "Modern technology, extended hours, a patient-focused approach." "And you think that will be enough?" I looked him directly in the eye. "I was top of my class at Johns Hopkins. I have outstanding references, and I'm willing to work harder than anyone else in this city." I slid my detailed business plan across his desk. "I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for an investment in something that will succeed." He approved the loan. By June, construction on my practice was underway. I hired a contractor who specialized in medical offices. Every decision felt momentous. The color of the walls, the type of exam tables, the software system for patient records. I chose everything my father's practice was not. Warm colors instead of clinical white, comfortable furniture instead of rigid chairs, a digital system that allowed patients to access their records online. I had not told my family what I was doing. My mother called weekly, asking if I had met anyone nice at the hospital. My father never called at all. Trevor sent occasional texts about how overwhelmed he was with the practice, asking questions that revealed just how little he understood about the business of medicine. I did not respond. In August, I hired my first staff member, a nurse practitioner named Joyce, who had 20 years of experience and had grown frustrated with the bureaucracy at her hospital job. When I explained my vision for the practice, her eyes lit up. "Patient-centered care," she said. "Actual time with each person, not rushing them through in 10 minutes. Exactly. When do I start?" The practice opened on September 15th. I had sent announcements to every address in a 3-mile radius, advertising same-day appointments, extended evening hours, and a free initial consultation. I had also made sure to mention that I had trained at Johns Hopkins and completed my residency at Denver Presbyterian, 2 credentials that matched or exceeded anything my father's practice could claim. My first patient arrived at 8 in the morning, a woman named Dorothy who was 72 and had been going to my father's practice for 30 years. "I saw your flyer," she said, settling into a chair in my office. "It mentioned evening appointments?" "Tuesday and Thursday until 8 p.m., I confirmed. "I know many people have trouble taking time off work for medical visits." "Your father's office closes at 4:30. Dorothy shook her head. "I've been trying to get my blood work done for 3 months, but I can't afford to keep leaving work early. My boss is understanding, but there's a limit." I spent 45 minutes with Dorothy that first morning. I reviewed her medications, updated her vaccinations, and scheduled her for blood work that afternoon. When she left, she was smiling. "This is what a doctor's visit should feel like," she said. "Thank you, Dr. Vivian." 6 more patients came that first day. 3 were new to the area, 2 were dissatisfied with their current doctors, and 1 was another longtime patient of my father's practice who had seen my announcement and was curious. By the end of the first week, I had seen 32 patients. By the end of the first month, I had over 100 in my system, with more calling every day to schedule appointments. Joyce was invaluable. She handled the administrative chaos that came with a new practice while also seeing patients herself for minor illnesses and routine checkups. We worked 12-hour days, sometimes longer, but there was an energy to it that felt electric. "You're building something real," Joyce told me one evening as we locked up the office. "People are talking about this place, good things." I allowed myself to feel proud. Then I went home and worked on marketing materials for another 3 hours. In October, I ran into one of the doctors from my father's practice at a medical conference. Dr. Harrison looked uncomfortable when he saw me approach. "Vivian," he said carefully, "I heard you opened your own practice. News travels fast. Your father is not pleased." He glanced around as if worried someone might overhear. "He's been asking questions about your patient numbers, your financing. I think he's concerned." "Concerned? Between you and me?" Dr. Harrison leaned closer. "We've lost about 40 patients in the last 2 months. Most of them mentioned they were trying your practice because of the evening hours or the shorter wait times." He straightened up. "Your father is trying to figure out how to respond." I felt a thrill of satisfaction that I immediately felt guilty about. Then I reminded myself that my father had chosen this. He had decided I was not good enough because of my gender. If his practice was suffering now, it was because he had underestimated me. "I hope those patients are getting good care," I said neutrally. "I'm sure they are. You were always excellent." Dr. Harrison hesitated. "For what it's worth, I thought your father's decision was wrong. I told him so." "Thank you. That means a lot." He nodded and walked away, leaving me standing in the conference hallway with a growing sense of purpose. This was working. My practice was not just surviving, it was thriving, and my father was noticing. November brought a cold snap to Denver, and with it, a wave of flu and respiratory infections. My practice was slammed. I hired a second nurse and extended our hours even further. We were open from 7 in the morning until 8 at night, 6 days a week. The exhaustion was real, but so was the satisfaction. Every patient who chose my practice over my father's felt like a small victory. Every positive review online, every referral from a satisfied patient, every call from someone who had heard good things about the care we provided. I was building something that mattered, something that was mine. On a Friday evening in late November, I saw my last patient out and locked the front door. Joyce had left an hour earlier, exhausted, but happy. The office was quiet, except for the hum of the heater. I sat at my desk and pulled up the financial reports on my computer. The numbers were better than projected. If this pace continued, I would be profitable within 18 months instead of the 3 years I had originally estimated. I had over 300 active patients now, with more joining every week. My phone rang. An unknown Denver number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. Vivian. My father's voice was cold. We need to talk. I had not heard my father's voice in 8 months. The sound of it sent a jolt through my system, half fear and half vindication. Hello, Dad, I said, keeping my own voice level. What do you think you're doing? I could have played innocent. Instead, I chose honesty. I'm practicing medicine, just like you taught me. You're sabotaging our family practice. His voice rose slightly. You're stealing patients who have been with us for decades. I'm not stealing anyone. I'm providing care to people who choose to come to me. I leaned back in my chair, phone pressed to my ear. They're allowed to choose their own doctors. This is vindictive. You're doing this to punish me. The accusation stung, because it was partially true, but it was not the whole truth. I'm doing this because you told me I wasn't good enough to join our family practice, so I built my own. I never said you weren't good enough. You said medicine wasn't for women. You gave my birthright to Trevor because he has different anatomy. If that's not saying I'm not good enough, then I don't know what is. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, we should meet. Discuss this face to face. Why? Are you going to offer me a position now that I'm competition? I'm trying to repair our family. Our family didn't need repairing until you broke it, I said. I have to go. I have patient notes to finish. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and second-guessing. Had I been too harsh? Should I have agreed to meet with him? But every time I considered calling him back, I remembered standing in his office, hearing him dismiss everything I had worked for. Monday morning brought a surprise. Trevor was waiting outside my practice when I arrived to unlock the door at 6:45 a.m. We need to talk, he said. He looked terrible. His face was drawn, his eyes tired. The expensive suit my father had probably bought him hung poorly on his frame, as if he had lost weight. Make it quick, I said, unlocking the door. I have patients starting at 7. He followed me inside. I did not offer him coffee or a seat. I went to my office and started pulling up patient files for the day. Dad is furious, Trevor said from the doorway. I gathered that from his phone call Friday night. You don't understand. He's talking about expanding the practice, lowering prices, extending hours. He's trying to figure out how to compete with you. Trevor ran a hand through his hair. He's making my life hell, Vivian. Every day he's comparing our patient numbers to yours, asking why we're losing people, demanding I come up with strategies. I looked up at him. And what do you think you deserve from me? Sympathy? I didn't ask for any of this. Yes, you did. You accepted the position that should have been mine. You didn't object when Dad decided I wasn't good enough because of my gender. My voice was sharp. You benefited from sexism, Trevor. Don't expect me to feel sorry for you now that there are consequences. I knew you'd be angry, but I didn't think you'd go this far. This far? I opened a medical practice. I'm providing excellent care to patients. What exactly is the problem? You're destroying our family. I stood up and walked around my desk until I was facing him directly. Dad destroyed our family when he broke his promise to me. When he decided that 60 years of tradition mattered less than his outdated views about women. I'm just living my life, Trevor. If that happens to impact the family practice, maybe Dad should have thought about that before he excluded me. Trevor stared at me. You really hate us. I don't hate you. I'm just done putting your comfort and Dad's ego ahead of my own career and dignity. I checked my watch. You need to leave. My first patient will be here in 10 minutes. He left without another word. Joyce arrived 5 minutes later and found me standing by the window, arms crossed, trying to calm down. Everything okay? She asked. Family drama. The worst kind. She squeezed my shoulder. Don't let them get in your head. What we're doing here matters. The patients love you. The reviews are stellar. Let your father and brother deal with their own problems. She was right, but it was hard. For the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into work with renewed intensity. I started offering flu vaccination clinics on Saturday mornings. I partnered with a local laboratory to provide faster test results. I implemented a patient portal system that allowed people to message me directly with non-urgent questions. Every innovation was designed to provide better care than my father's practice. And every innovation worked. By mid-December, I had over 400 active patients. I hired a third staff member, a medical assistant named Kevin, who had just graduated from his program and brought fresh energy to the practice. We were seeing 50 to 60 patients a day between Joyce, myself, and Kevin. The local newspaper ran a feature about new healthcare providers in Denver. They interviewed me for 20 minutes and took photos of the practice. When the article came out, it emphasized my credentials, my patient-centered approach, and my extended hours. It mentioned that I came from a family of physicians, but was building my own path. My father called again that night. You talked to the press, he said without preamble. I gave an interview about my practice. Yes. You made it sound like our practice is outdated. I never mentioned your practice specifically. The implication was clear. His voice was tight with anger. You've always been stubborn, Vivian, but this is beyond stubbornness. This is spite. This is my career, I said. I'm sorry if my success makes you uncomfortable, but I'm not going to apologize for building something I'm proud of. Your mother is devastated. The guilt trip was predictable, but still effective. I closed my eyes. Mom is devastated because you're making this into a war. I opened a medical practice. That's all. If you had supported me instead of excluding me, we could have all been working together. So this is my fault? Yes, Dad, it is. He hung up. Christmas was lonely. My mother invited me to their annual dinner, but the invitation felt obligatory rather than warm. I declined and spent the day volunteering at a free clinic, seeing patients who couldn't afford regular care. January brought a new challenge. My father's practice started advertising. Billboards appeared around Denver. 3 generations of trusted care. Radio ads emphasized their decades of experience and family tradition. They extended their hours to 6 p.m. on weekdays and started offering same-day appointments. Joyce showed me one of the billboards during our lunch break. They're copying your strategy. Let them, I said. We're still better. But privately, I was worried. My father had resources I didn't have. Name recognition, established relationships with specialists and hospitals, and enough capital to undercut my prices if he wanted to. If he was willing to modernize the practice and actually compete, he could make my life very difficult. I needed something to differentiate my practice beyond just extended hours and modern technology. I needed an edge. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dorothy, my very first patient. She came in for her quarterly checkup in late January, and as we talked, she mentioned that she had been diagnosed with diabetes 5 years earlier. I hate going to the endocrinologist, she confessed. It's across town. The wait times are terrible, and they always make me feel like I'm failing because my numbers aren't perfect. An idea sparked. What if you could manage your diabetes here? With me? Can you do that? I'd need to get additional certification in diabetes management, but yes, it would take a couple of months of study, but I could absolutely provide that care. I leaned forward. What if we offered comprehensive chronic disease management here? Diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol. Everything coordinated in one place instead of sending patients to 5 different specialists. Dorothy's face lit up. That would be amazing. I spent the next 3 months getting certified in diabetes management and chronic disease care. I took online courses at night, studied during lunch breaks, and passed 3 separate certification exams. By April, I was officially qualified to manage complex chronic conditions. I sent letters to all my patients who had diabetes, hypertension, or high cholesterol, offering comprehensive management plans. The response was overwhelming. Within 2 weeks, I had 30 patients enrolled in chronic disease programs. The beauty of it was that these patients needed frequent monitoring, which meant regular visits, which meant steady income and stronger relationships. And unlike my father's practice, which sent patients to specialists for everything, I was providing coordinated, comprehensive care. Joyce helped me develop protocols and tracking systems. Kevin managed the additional scheduling complexity. We were working harder than ever, but the practice was growing faster than I had ever projected. My father noticed. Of course he did. In May, I got a certified letter from a lawyer. My father was threatening legal action, claiming I was engaging in unfair competition and violating patient privacy laws by targeting his former patients. I took the letter to my own lawyer, a sharp woman named Victoria, who specialized in healthcare law. "This is garbage," she said after reading it. "You haven't violated anything. Patients have the right to choose their own doctors. You haven't accessed any confidential information from his practice. He's just angry and trying to intimidate you." "Will it work?" "Not unless you let it." Victoria tossed the letter on her desk. "Write a response through me. We'll make it clear that you're willing to defend yourself in court if necessary, but that you've done nothing wrong." The response we sent was professional but firm. We pointed out that competition was legal, that patients had autonomy, and that nothing I had done violated any laws or ethical standards. We also made it clear that if my father wanted to pursue legal action, we would countersue for harassment. He backed down. But the damage to our family was complete. My mother stopped calling. Trevor unfriended me on social media. I was effectively erased from family events and conversations. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. But every time I felt weak, I walked through my practice and saw the patients I was helping. I read the thank you notes people sent. I looked at the financial reports that showed a thriving, growing business. I had proven my father wrong. That had to be enough. In June, something unexpected happened. Dr. Harrison, one of the senior physicians from my father's practice, came to visit me. "I'm retiring," he said without preamble. "I'm 67. My wife wants to travel, and I'm tired of the politics." "Congratulations," I said, unsure why he was telling me this. "I want to refer my patients to you. All of them." I stared at him. "What?" "I have about 200 active patients. Most of them have been with me for years. They trust me." He pulled out a folder. "I've talked to many of them about you. They're willing to transfer their care if I recommend it." "Why me? Why not keep them at the practice?" Dr. Harrison's expression was sad. "Because your father has made that place toxic. He's obsessed with competing with you. He's pushing Trevor too hard. The other doctors are miserable, and I don't want my patients caught in the middle of a family war." He slid the folder across my desk. "You're a better doctor than your brother, Vivian. You always were. My patients deserve the best care possible." Tears stung my eyes. "Thank you. You earned it." The transfer of patients happened over the next 6 weeks. Not all of them came to me, but about 150 did. My practice suddenly had over 500 active patients. I had to hire another physician, a recent residency graduate named Thomas, who was enthusiastic and skilled. We moved to a larger space in August, taking over the entire second floor of the building. 4 more exam rooms, a proper lab, a dedicated area for chronic disease management. The renovation cost was steep, but the bank approved the loan without hesitation. My practice was profitable, growing, and respected. I was exhausted and exhilarated in equal measure. September marked 1 year since I had opened my practice. I threw a small celebration for the staff, dinner at a nice restaurant, bonuses for everyone, and heartfelt thank yous for their dedication. "You built something incredible," Joyce said, raising her water glass. "From nothing to this in 1 year. That's remarkable." "We built it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without all of you." Thomas, who had only been with us for 2 months, looked around the table. "I heard about the situation with your father. That must have been incredibly difficult." "It was," I admitted. "It still is. But it also motivated me in ways I didn't expect. Sometimes the people who hurt us end up pushing us to become stronger than we ever would have been otherwise." The toast to that felt earned. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a professional voice said, "Dr. Vivian, this is Helen from Colorado Medical Board. We've received a complaint about your practice that we need to investigate." My blood went cold. "What kind of complaint?" "Allegations of patient poaching and fraudulent advertising. We'll need to schedule a time to review your records and business practices." I knew immediately who had filed the complaint. My father had escalated from legal threats to trying to damage my medical license. Victoria was furious when I told her. "This is retaliation, pure and simple. We'll fight it." The investigation took 3 months. 3 months of stress, of having investigators come through my practice, of providing documentation for every patient, every advertisement, every business decision. 3 months of wondering if my father would actually succeed in destroying what I had built. Joyce and the rest of the staff rallied around me. Thomas helped organize all the necessary paperwork. Kevin created spreadsheets tracking every patient interaction. We proved, beyond any doubt, that everything we had done was ethical and legal. In December, I received the official letter. The complaint was dismissed. The medical board found no evidence of wrongdoing. My license was secure. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt rage. My father had tried to destroy my career out of spite. He had weaponized his connections and his reputation to come after me, and he had failed. But the attempt itself was unforgivable. I called him for the first time in over a year. "We need to meet," I said when he answered. "Face to face. Tomorrow." There was a long pause. Then, "My office, 2 p.m. I arrived at his practice exactly on time. The waiting room looked shabbier than I remembered. The furniture was worn, the magazines outdated. Through the receptionist window, I could see a mostly empty waiting area. Trevor came out to meet me instead of my father. He looked even worse than he had a year ago, thinner, more haggard, with dark circles under his eyes. "Dad's running late with a patient," he said. "We can wait in his office." I followed him down the familiar hallway. The photos of 3 generations of male doctors seemed to mock me. In my father's office, Trevor sat heavily in a guest chair. "I'm glad you came." "I'm not here for reconciliation," I said. "I'm here to tell Dad exactly what I think of his attempt to destroy my license." That wasn't just him. I was part of that decision too. I looked at my brother with something like pity. "Of course you were. Because you can't compete with me legitimately, so you tried to use bureaucracy to eliminate the competition. You've taken everything from us, Vivian. Our patience, our reputation, our family unity." I didn't take anything. I built my own practice. Patients chose to come to me because I provide better care. And our family unity was destroyed when Dad decided I wasn't good enough because I'm a woman. I leaned forward. You want to know the real tragedy, Trevor? You could have been a decent doctor if Dad hadn't handed you everything. But instead, you've learned that you don't have to work hard or be skilled. You just have to be male. The door opened. My father walked in, and for the first time, I saw him as he truly was. An old man clinging to outdated ideas, watching his legacy crumble because he had been too proud and too sexist to recognize talent when it was standing right in front of him. "Vivian," he said. His voice was tired. "You tried to destroy my medical license," I said without preamble. "You failed. Now I need you to understand something very clearly. I am going to continue to succeed. My practice is going to continue to grow. And there is nothing you can do to stop me. I was trying to protect what I built. You were trying to punish me for being better than your son, and for having the audacity to prove you wrong about women in medicine." I stood up. "I came here to tell you that I'm done being the forgiving daughter. I'm done making excuses for your behavior. And I'm done caring what you think of me." "Is that it then? Our relationship is over?" "You ended our relationship when you told me medicine wasn't for women. I'm just finally accepting it." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and one more thing. I'm opening a second location. East Denver, near the new residential development. Should be operational by March." The look on his face was worth everything. The second location opened on March 1st, 2 years and 6 months after that conversation in my father's office when he had dismissed my life's work. This new practice was even more beautiful than the first. A modern building with large windows, state-of-the-art equipment, and room for 6 exam rooms. I hired 2 more physicians, Dr. Rebecca, who specialized in pediatrics, and Dr. James, who had expertise in geriatric care. With these additions, my practice could now serve patients from infancy through end-of-life care. We were becoming a comprehensive healthcare system. The grand opening drew over 200 people from the community, local business owners, patients, other healthcare providers. The mayor even stopped by to cut the ribbon, praising my commitment to accessible, quality healthcare. My father's practice had lost over 40% of its patient base to me by this point. I knew because Dorothy, still one of my most loyal patients, remained friends with people who still went there. She reported back to me with barely concealed glee. "They're struggling," she said during one of her appointments. "Wait times are shorter because they have fewer patients. Dr. Harrison's replacement isn't nearly as good, and your brother looks exhausted every time someone sees him around town." I should have felt guilty. I didn't. In April, my father did something I didn't expect. He tried to sell the practice. Word got around the medical community quickly. He was looking for a buyer to take over the family practice he had inherited from his father. Victoria called me when she heard. "You could buy it, merge the 2 practices into one, finally get what you always wanted." The idea was tempting, poetic even. But as I sat in my office, looking at the thriving practice I had built from nothing, I realized I didn't want his practice anymore. I had something better. Something I had created myself. Something that reflected my values and vision. "No," I told Victoria. "Let him sell to someone else. I don't need his legacy." The sale fell through anyway. Potential buyers saw declining patient numbers and outdated systems. The price my father wanted was unrealistic, given the practice's current state. By June, he had taken the practice off the market and was stuck trying to revive something that was slowly dying. Trevor called me in July. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "I'm leaving the practice," he said without preamble. "I'm moving to Phoenix, starting over." "What happened?" "Dad and I had a fight. He blamed me for the decline in patients, said I wasn't working hard enough to compete with you. I told him that maybe, if he had let you join the practice like he promised, none of this would have happened." Trevor's voice was hollow. He didn't like that. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Trevor had been a pawn in our father's game just as much as I had been. I'm not. I was never meant to be a doctor, Vivian. I did it because Dad wanted me to, but I hate it. I'm going to do something else. Maybe business, maybe teaching. Anything but medicine. Good luck, Trevor. You too. For what it's worth, your practice is really impressive. I drove by the new location last week. It looks amazing. We hung up, and I felt a strange sort of peace. Trevor had been a victim of our father's expectations too, just in a different way. By August, my practice had over 700 active patients across both locations. We were hiring again. More nurses, more medical assistants, another physician. The growth was almost overwhelming, but it was also deeply satisfying. I was making a difference in hundreds of lives. Patients trusted me. They told their friends and family about the care they received. They left glowing reviews online. The practice had become exactly what I had envisioned during those late nights of planning 2 years earlier. In September, I received an invitation that surprised me. The Denver Medical Association wanted to give me their Rising Star Award for innovative healthcare delivery. The ceremony was in October, a formal dinner with 200 attendees. Joyce insisted I go. You deserve recognition. Accept it gracefully. The night of the ceremony, I wore a navy dress and tried not to be nervous. I sat at a table with my staff, surrounded by other healthcare professionals I respected. When they called my name for the award, the applause was genuine and warm. I gave a short speech about patient-centered care, about the importance of innovation in medicine, about creating systems that served people rather than profits. I thanked my team. I mentioned my mentors, including Dr. Patricia Owens, who had flown in from Seattle for the event. I did not mention my father. His absence from the story was more powerful than any accusation would have been. As I walked off the stage, award in hand, I saw him. My father was sitting at a table near the back, alone. His face was drawn, his expression unreadable. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw something there I had never seen before. Regret. But it was too late for regret. The damage was done. The award brought unexpected opportunities. Within 2 weeks, I was contacted by a healthcare technology company interested in partnering with my practice to develop better patient portal systems. A local university asked if I would teach a course on practice management for medical students. 3 separate media outlets requested interviews. I accepted all of it. Every opportunity to expand my influence, to help more patients, to prove that my father had made the worst mistake of his professional life when he rejected me. The partnership with the technology company was particularly exciting. They wanted to use my practice as a pilot site for new telemedicine capabilities, allowing patients to have video consultations for minor issues. It would expand access even further and position my practice as a leader in healthcare innovation. My father's practice continued to decline. I heard through the community grapevine that he had let 2 of his physicians go, consolidating operations to reduce costs. The once thriving practice was now a shell of what it had been. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant. Another part, the part that remembered being 7 years old and following him around during Saturday appointments, just felt sad. In November, my mother called. It was the first time we had spoken in almost 2 years. Your father had a heart attack, she said. He's stable, but it was serious. He's in Denver Presbyterian. I closed my eyes. Is he okay? He will be. They're keeping him for observation. She paused. He asked if you would visit. I didn't want to. Every instinct told me to protect myself, to maintain the boundaries I had built. But he was still my father, despite everything. I went to the hospital that evening. His room was private, the lights dimmed. He looked small in the hospital bed, monitors beeping softly around him. My mother sat in a chair by the window looking exhausted. Hi, Dad, I said from the doorway. He turned his head, and his expression crumpled when he saw me. Vivian. I walked over and stood by his bed, not sure what to say. He reached for my hand, and after a moment, I let him take it. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice was weak. "I was wrong. About everything." The words I had wanted to hear 2 years ago felt insufficient now. "You were. I ruined everything. The practice is failing. Trevor left. You won't speak to me." Tears slid down his cheeks. "And you were right. You would have been better at running the practice than Trevor ever was. You're a better doctor than I ever was." My mother made a small sound of surprise, as if she had never expected to hear him admit it. "I built my own practice," I said quietly. "I proved I could succeed without you. That's what matters now. Can you forgive me?" I thought about it. The anger had faded over the past 2 years, replaced by a kind of weary acceptance. He had hurt me deeply, but he had also inadvertently given me the motivation to create something incredible. "I can forgive you eventually," I said. "But I can't forget what you did. And I can't give you absolution for the choices you made. You're going to have to live with the consequences." He nodded, more tears falling. "I understand." I stayed for an hour, talking quietly with both my parents. We did not resolve everything. Some wounds were too deep for a single conversation, but it was a start. When I left, I felt lighter somehow. The weight of his judgment, his disapproval, had been pressing on me for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to be free of it. His apology did not change the past, but it acknowledged the truth. December brought year-end financial reports. My practice had generated over $2 million in revenue, with healthy profit margins and room for continued growth. We were negotiating to open a third location in the suburbs. We had over 900 active patients and a waiting list for new patient appointments. I had succeeded beyond my wildest projections, and I had done it despite my father's attempts to stop me. On New Year's Eve, I gathered my staff for a celebration at the practice. We ordered catering, dimmed the lights, and spent the evening reflecting on what we had accomplished. 3 years ago, I was standing in my father's office being told I wasn't good enough, I said to the group. He told me medicine wasn't for women, that I should accept a different path. And I could have. I could have accepted his judgment and spent my life wondering what if. I looked around at the faces of people who had believed in me and my vision. Instead, we built this together. We proved that patient-centered care matters, that innovation matters, that sometimes the people who doubt us just provide the fuel we need to succeed. Joyce started clapping, and soon, everyone joined in. As midnight approached, I stood by the window of my office, looking out at the Denver skyline. Somewhere out there, my father was probably at home, perhaps wondering where everything had gone wrong. Trevor was in Phoenix, starting a new life free from medicine. And I was here, surrounded by evidence of what I had accomplished through sheer determination and skill. The new year brought changes I hadn't anticipated. In January, I received an unexpected visitor, a representative from a national healthcare organization that was interested in franchising my practice model. They wanted to replicate what I had built in other cities, creating a network of patient-centered practices that prioritized accessibility and innovation. "You've created something special here," the representative, a woman named Patricia, said. She was not the same Patricia who had mentored me, but she had the same sharp intelligence. "We've been watching your growth. Your patient satisfaction scores are exceptional. Your retention rates are well above industry standards, and your financial performance proves the model is sustainable. I'm not sure I want to franchise," I said carefully. "This practice is personal to me." "We understand, but think about the impact you could have. Hundreds of communities could benefit from your approach to healthcare. You could mentor other physicians who are trying to start their own practices. You could change the industry." I told her I would think about it. Over the next month, I discussed the opportunity with Joyce, with my lawyer Victoria, and with Dr. Patricia in Seattle. The consensus was that it was a remarkable opportunity, but also a massive undertaking that would change everything about my work. "You've already proven your point," Patricia told me during a phone call. "You've shown your father he was wrong. You've built a successful practice. The question is, what do you want to do next?" I realized I wanted to keep building, not out of spite or revenge, but because I genuinely loved what I was doing. I loved patient care, I loved innovation, and I loved the idea of helping other physicians create their own success stories. I agreed to a pilot program. My organization would partner with 3 new practices in other cities, providing consultation and support as they launched. If it worked, we could expand from there. My father sold his practice in March. The buyer was a corporate healthcare group that planned to modernize the facility and rebrand it completely. The 60-year legacy of our family practice ended with a signature on a contract. My mother called to tell me. "He's taking it hard," she said. The practice was his identity. "I know," I said. And I did understand, even if I couldn't muster much sympathy. He had chosen pride over family, tradition over talent. The loss of the practice was a consequence of those choices. "He wants to know if you're hiring." I almost laughed. "Is he serious?" "I think he wants to be close to you somehow, to be part of what you've built." I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. "No, I'm not hiring him. He made his choice 2 years ago. He doesn't get to undo it now that his decision backfired." My mother sighed but didn't argue. The 3 pilot practices launched in May, June, and July. I traveled to help with the openings: Atlanta, Portland, and Austin. In each city, I worked with passionate physicians who were tired of corporate medicine and wanted to create something better. I shared everything I had learned, the mistakes I had made, the strategies that had worked, the importance of patient relationships. It was fulfilling in a way I hadn't expected. I was building a legacy that was bigger than my own practice, bigger than my family's history. I was changing healthcare. In August, my father showed up at my original practice unannounced. Joyce came to my office looking uncertain. "Your father is in the waiting room. He says he just wants to talk." I could have sent him away. Instead, I told Joyce to give me 5 minutes and then show him in. When he entered my office, he looked older than his 68 years. The heart attack had aged him, but so had the loss of the practice and everything he had believed defined him. "Thank you for seeing me," he said, standing awkwardly near the door. "Sit down, Dad." He sat. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I've been following your expansion," he finally said. "The practices in other cities, the award you won, the interview in that medical journal." He shook his head. "You've accomplished more in 3 years than I did in 40. "I had good training," I said. It wasn't generous, but it was true. For all his faults, he had taught me to be an excellent physician. "I came to tell you I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago, but I was too stubborn, too invested in my own ideas about how things should be." He looked directly at me. "You proved me wrong about everything, and I'm glad you did." The apology felt more genuine than the one in the hospital, maybe because it wasn't prompted by illness or fear, but by honest recognition. "Thank you," I said. "I also came to ask if there's any way I can be part of your life again." "Not professionally," he added quickly. "I know I don't deserve that, but as your father, if that's possible." I considered it. The anger had faded, replaced by something more complex. Understanding that he was human, flawed, capable of change, but also of inflicting deep wounds. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean pretending the past hadn't happened. "We can try," I said carefully. "But it has to be on my terms. No expectations. No trying to give me advice about how to run my practice. You lost that right when you excluded me." "I understand. And you need to acknowledge, Really acknowledge that what you did was wrong. Not just to me, but to every woman who ever wanted to be more than what you thought they should be." He nodded slowly. "I was raised in a different time, but that's no excuse. I made your life harder because of my prejudices. I almost destroyed what could have been a partnership with an extraordinary doctor. I'm sorry, Vivian. Truly. It wasn't enough to erase the pain, but it was something." Over the following months, my father and I rebuilt a relationship. It was different from before. Careful, boundaried, with the clear understanding that I was in charge of my own life. He came to Sunday dinners I hosted for the practice staff. He met some of my patients and saw firsthand the kind of care I provided. He never offered unsolicited advice, and when I did ask his opinion on something, he gave it humbly. My mother told me privately that losing the practice and nearly losing me had changed him fundamentally. He had started volunteering at a free clinic, providing care to uninsured patients. He had joined a mentorship program for young female physicians. He was trying to atone. I didn't know if it was enough, but it was his journey to make. By the end of my 3rd year in practice, I had 1,500 patients across 3 locations. The franchise program was expanding to 7 more cities. I had been featured in national medical journals and had been invited to speak at conferences around the country. I had proved everything I needed to prove. In the months that followed, my father watched his own world shrink considerably. The sale of the practice left him with money, but no purpose. His reputation in the Denver medical community suffered as word spread about why I had left to start my own practice, and how he had tried to sabotage me with the medical board complaint. Former colleagues distanced themselves. Younger physicians viewed him as a relic of a sexist past. He tried to volunteer at various clinics, but his outdated approaches and diminished credibility meant few wanted his help. Trevor, settled in Phoenix and working in medical equipment sales, maintained minimal contact. The family legacy my father had prioritized above his own daughter was gone, replaced by my thriving network of practices that bore my vision, not his name. He attended a monthly dinner I hosted, sitting quietly at the end of the table, a shadow of the commanding figure who had once dismissed my dreams. Standing in my office on a quiet Saturday morning, I looked at the wall where my medical degree hung beside photos of all 3 practice locations, the national award, and a framed article about the franchise expansion. I thought about that day in my father's office when he told me medicine wasn't for women. I thought about the anger that had fueled me, the determination that had built this empire, and the satisfaction of proving him catastrophically wrong. Revenge, I had learned, wasn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was simply living well, succeeding brilliantly, and watching those who doubted you realize the magnitude of their mistake. And as I prepared to fly to Denver to open practice location number 12, I smiled, knowing that every patient I helped, every doctor I mentored, and every barrier I broke was the best revenge I could have ever designed.